Author Donna Jodhan presents Episode 9, The President's Super Christmas Car. In this episode, President Marco Sumner and his buddy Nicolas Gleason set out on a special mission. This being to help fulfill the dream of someone who needed the gift of cheer to be brought into his life. Find out how the president and his prodigy did it all, and how their mission helped to bring even more cheer to others. Innovation, kindness, thoughtfulness, and much more are the themes of this story. The President's Super Christmas Car. A tale of fiction of a special gift delivered on Christmas morning. Written by Donna J. Jodhan.
Hello, 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 and ho, ho, ho to everyone. It's Detective DJ, and welcome to episode 9 of my series in the box set entitled The 12 Days of Christmas. I hope that everyone is enjoying their Christmas season thus far. The holidays are always a very special time for every one of us. Shopping, cooking, baking, rushing around, gift wrapping, toys and games and goodies for everyone, families and friends, making special phone calls to families and friends, making calls to those who are so far away from us, but yet so near because we're connected by so many things these days, not just by phone, but the internet, Skype, Facebook, Twitter, everything. So I hope that you are all enjoying your special time. Now it is time for me to welcome you to episode 9 of my special Christmas episodes. And this one is entitled The President's Super Christmas Car. Before starting off today, I'd like to just go back a bit and tell you about the previous 8 episodes that I have recorded for you. The first was called Santa's Super Secret. The second was called The President's Super Christmas Plane. The third was called Santa's Secret Toy Shop. The fourth was called Santa's Secret Christmas Ring. The fifth was called Santa's Super Christmas Party. Number 6 was called Santa's Secret Sleigh Ride. 7 was called The President's Super Christmas Ship. And number 8 was called Santa's Christmas Midnight Mission. Now it's time for episode 9, and I hope you enjoyed as much as I've enjoyed recording it for you. Welcome aboard, and here goes. All about President Marco Sumner and his sidekick Nicolas Gleason. Many years ago, President Marco Sumner, who was the president of an international toy conglomerate, met a little boy who has inadvertently touched his life and changed it in so many different ways. Today, Marco and Nicolas use their imaginations to make Christmas come true for millions of persons around the world, especially so for the less fortunate and for those in need. In the first episode of the President's series, Marco Sumner meets Nicolas Gleason in the mystery The President's Super Christmas Plane. And in this episode, it is Christmas time, and Marco has lost his sight. And at the same time, he receives a letter from a little boy, and that's Nicolas Gleason. Nicolas Gleason asks President Marco Sumner to do something for the less fortunate and for those kids who are blind. His letter touches Marco, and Marco invites the little boy and his parents to visit him in America. Little Nicolas cannot believe that he has received a return letter from Marco, and he did not tell his parents about this before he had written the letter, so that they are quite surprised when the phone call does come from Marco. Marco sends his plane to pick up the Gleasons, as he has invited them to spend Christmas with him and his family in America. Marco and little Nicolas hit it off immediately, and the two go on a whirlwind trip on Christmas Eve on Marco's Christmas plane, and they travel the world. Then something unexpected happens for both Marco and Nicolas. Most of Marco's vision is restored, and Nicolas receives the gift of sight. Marco then convinces Nicolas's parents to move to America with their little boy, and a few months after Christmas, they do just that. And Nicolas grows up to be Marco's closest buddy. And this is where they are today, working hand in hand. Marco is now married to his wife Chelsea, and they have a little boy whom they have named Nicolas Marco, and they call him Little Nick. Nicolas goes around teaching Braille in his spare time, and Marco has also learned Braille. Critics have named Marco and Nicolas the magicians, and for very good reason, as Nicolas uses his Braille skills to design unthinkable things, and Marco helps him to put it all together. And boy, do these two have lots of fun doing it all. Now little Nick is quickly following in the footsteps of his dad, and he helps to inspire Marco and Nicolas with his free spirit. And the Sumner and Gleason families are very supportive of the magicians, helping to keep things in order and helping to keep Marco and Nicolas on track. Each Christmas they use Marco's Super Christmas plane to bring cheer to countless kids and others around the world. And from time to time they entertain special requests from friends to do the same. It's already November, and they have received several requests from around the world. But for this year, Marco and Nicolas have decided to do something a bit different. Something that would be more personal, as they put it, and something that would bring cheer to others as well. But when they think that they have found the right request to work with, something happens, and plans need to be changed in a hurry. And now they are called to a top secret meeting with their friend Josh Reisman. Josh Reisman is a very high-profile reporter with lots of high connections. And he never fails to surprise Marco and Nicolas with his requests. And this one may be the one to top them all. A special request for Marco and Nicolas. Marco and Nicolas are painfully aware that Christmas is just around the corner, and that there is so much to do before the big day is here. But nevertheless, in contrary to what their hearts were telling them, they decide to go out on this quiet Sunday evening, the last Sunday of November, to meet with Josh. But this meeting is being held in a secret place. Josh picks them up in a deserted parking lot and drives them a few miles out of town to a huge house. The house is sitting on magnificent grounds, and electronic crates surround it. Josh's car is waved through by uniformed guards and drives into a portico, where it is met by a pair of burly security guards. The three are ordered out of the car and are thoroughly searched before they are allowed to go any further. Nicholas is quite taken aback by this and starts to protest softly. But Marco puts his hand on the younger man's shoulders so as to reassure him that all is well. Josh takes it in without saying anything, and he leads the way into a huge living room, and a tall man dressed in a jogging suit rises to greet them. But there is someone else sitting at a piano, and his back is turned to Marco and Nicholas as they enter, so that they are unable to see his face. But the man at the piano winks at Josh as he goes by. Everyone is seated, and mugs of hot apple cider are passed around, and someone remarks that there may be a snowstorm brewing. A bit early for this time of the year, and then Josh suggests that they should try to get their business done quickly. Everyone agrees, and the man in the jogging suit pulls out some file folders from his briefcase and passes them around to three visitors. He asks them to read the contents, and the room falls still. And all that can be heard is the breathing of the men, along with the rustling of papers. The man sitting at the piano slips out of the room and walks quietly to the back of the house. And Marco and Nicholas keep on reading, not noticing that he has left. Soon they are finished reading the papers, and they sit back in their oversized chairs, each pondering and wondering. And then the silence is unexpectedly broken by a huge golden lad who comes into the room. He comes sauntering in and walks up to the man wearing the jogging suit. And the man puts out his hand to pat the dog. Then the dog lies down noisily and places his head on the man's feet and promptly goes to sleep. The man in the jogging suit picks up his mug of apple cider and takes a huge sip. Then he puts it down and proceeds to speak. He turns to Marco and Nicholas and asks for comments. And it is Marco who speaks on behalf of himself and Nicholas. He tells the man in the jogging suit that he and Nicholas need time to consider, because they have never done anything like this before, and in addition, they need to find precisely where a certain location is before agreeing. The man in the jogging suit surprises them when he tells them that the location that they are seeking cannot be found anywhere, because it is a very secret location, and it is not on any map of the world. Nicholas begins to worry, but Marco is not worried. The man in the jogging suit tells them that he knows where it is and that they should not worry too much. they will figure out how to get there one way or the other. Marco and Nicholas have other questions, of course, and the man in the jogging suit does his best to answer them. But the magicians are not quite satisfied, and they tell the man that they need more time to consider. But the man is insistent that they give him an answer before leaving the house. And he and Josh rise, leaving Marco and Nicholas to discuss everything between themselves. Hours go by as Marco and Nicholas discuss this request. And during this time, they are served a sumptuous dinner. Josh and the man in the jogging suit remain outside, and Marco and Nicholas can hear them talking and laughing with each other. And at times, they can also make out another voice that sounds vaguely familiar. Marco and Nicholas are honored that their friend Josh has brought this request to them, but truth be told, there are a few risks to this. Not just the location, but what is required, and could it be done before Christmas? Nicholas worries that there are too many unknowns, and Marco worries about everything else. The two men also want to make sure that they will be back in time to spend Christmas with their families. Marco and Nicholas are aware that the hands of the clock have just landed on midnight, and they are still not sure if they can take on this request. The mission itself is somewhat dangerous, but the purpose is a noble one. The magicians are tired and they want to go home to their families, but Josh and his friends are waiting, and they have just told Marco and Nicholas that time is running out. They have reassured Marco and Nicholas that they will help them in any way that they can, but they need to give an answer now, or else they will not be able to spend Christmas with their families, as it is important that this mission not be disclosed to anyone else but Marco and Nicholas. Nicholas is beside himself with anxiety, but Marco's experience helps him to settle down the younger man, and soon they reluctantly agree to do it. The sun is already rising in the east when the magicians finally arrive home. The top secret Christmas mission. Marco and Nicholas have to hurry if they expect to meet all of their commitments, and they are sworn to secrecy by the man in the jogging suit. And, accordingly, they are unable to say much to their families. But the families are used to this sort of thing, and they go about their business as usual. For the next few weeks, Marco and Nicholas spend long hours in their workshop, and there are specific things for Nicholas to design and develop. Long hours are spent designing, building, testing, and retesting. The President's Super Christmas plane is prepared, and workers are told to make doubly sure that everything on board the plane is very ready. Marco is very busy, but he makes sure to spend time with little Nick, and he takes him shopping for some of his favorite toys. He even sneaks little Nick in to see what he and Nicholas are working on. And the little boy's eyes light up when he sees it all. and little Nick is told that it is all for a top secret mission. Little Nick is going to have a ball of a time, a ball of a Christmas this year, but he does not know this as yet. So too are others, but they do not know this as yet either. For Marco and Nicholas, they just want to finish off what they have committed to doing, and then to return to their families in time for Christmas morning. The hidden location where Marco and Nicholas are supposed to be headed to is still a troublesome thought for the magicians, but the two men soldier on. Nicholas has to use his braille skills to help him develop certain systems, but at the end of the day, he is happy with his work. Then it is time to take the President's Super Christmas plane to a top secret location. And now all is ready for takeoff. Marco and Nicholas reassure their families that they will be back in time for Christmas morning. But unknown to these two, their families also have a secret of their own. And little Nick almost lets it out as he says goodbye to his dad. But Marco barely notices as his mind is somewhere else. The night's air is Christmas cool, and the magicians have dressed warmly. And as Christmas shoppers bustle about in crowded malls, kids scamper about greeting each other, the magicians sneak away into the dark towards the President's Super Christmas plane. And, unknown to them, someone watches closely as they board the plane, and then the doors are closed. And the unseen watcher is also aboard and hides away in a hidden corner of the plane. Marco and Nicholas take their seats, and then they are airborne. Drama along the way. Marco would later reflect that he was a bit uneasy as the plane took off, but he did his best not to show it. The President's Super Christmas plane climbs slowly and then heads off eastwards. And on board is very precious cargo. Something very special that the magicians have designed for someone very special. Of course, everyone in the toy industry has been speculating about what the magicians have been doing for the last few weeks. But no one seems to really know. And if they did, no one would really ever know what the reaction would be. Yes, the cargo is indeed very special. But the magicians are not too sure who it is really for. They know why, but the true identity of the recipient is still a mystery to them. And although they have speculated in the past, they trust their friend Josh Reisman and his friends. The atmosphere on board the President's Super Christmas plane is upbeat and very merry. Staff are relaxed and enjoying the Christmas goodies that have been prepared for them by Marco's chefs, his mom, and his wife. And Nicholas's parents have even added a few of their own specialties. Christmas carols are playing softly over the intercom, and the two magicians are lying back in their comfy chairs at the back of the plane. They are almost dozing and do not notice at first as the plane suddenly begins to slow. And as the pilot would later recount, it practically came out of nowhere. And when it comes, it descends upon the president's Super Christmas plane and attacks with full force. Marco and Nicolas are practically jolted out of their seats, and everything on board goes flying everywhere. The pilot is desperately struggling to keep his plane in the air. It's a mammoth storm, thunder, lightning, and very high winds. The plane is rocking from side to side, and at times it feels as if it is about to plunge downwards. Some of the staff begin to scream, while others begin to pray. Marco clasps Nicolas's hand and does his best to comfort the younger man, but he himself is nervous. Marco attempts to rise and go to the front to talk to the pilot, but he falls back into his seat, and at the same time, the pilot comes onto the intercom and tells his passengers that they are in the midst of a terrific storm. He does his best to reassure them, but his voice is tense. 5 minutes go by, and then 10. And then the plane is rocked by a tremendous gust of wind, and the lights on board go out. Everyone is rooted to their seat, but someone is up and walking quickly to the front of the plane. He enters the cockpit and gently taps the pilot on his right shoulder. And as the startled pilot looks up, he is greeted by a familiar face. The pilot is totally confused, but the newcomer keeps on smiling and takes the control from the pilot. The pilot is only too willing to release the control. It takes a minute or two, but the newcomer manages to right the floundering plane. And shortly after this, the lights are back on and the newcomer is gone before the pilot has time to think, and let alone ask who he really is. The storm too has suddenly abated, and all is calm. But all on board are shaken and are unwilling to move. The pilot would later tell his passengers about the newcomer, but today he would still have no idea who the newcomer was. But this is not the end of the drama for the President's Super Christmas plane. No, it is not. Unexpected helpers. About an hour away from their secret destination, pilot comes onto the intercom and tells his passengers that he believes that they are about an hour away from landing. This is what he thinks. He's still trying to confirm this, because the airport is still not responding. But he does not tell his passengers that he is a bit lost, and he is not too sure where he is headed. He is having difficulty finding the right airport. After having to deal with the storm, the pilot seems to have gotten a bit disoriented, and now he believes that he may be heading in the wrong direction. But he is not sure, as his instruments seem to be out of whack. But he is sure, however, that he can correct things shortly. The pilot is afraid to tell Marco because he does not want to trouble his boss unnecessarily. But if he is unable to land soon, he will have to, because he knows that it is very hard to fool Marco like this. Half an hour goes by and the pilot is still unable to find his bearings, and now he is beginning to sweat. And then there comes a ping from his control panels, and he knows that it is bad news. And then the radio crackles in his ear, and the pilot begins to shake. A very stern voice tells him that he needs to turn right and follow the plane that is flying off of his right wing. The pilot is told that he is in unauthorized territory, and he needs to follow instructions immediately. Now the pilot really begins to sweat, and he has no choice but to go and get Marco. And now Marco comes into the cockpit and takes the headphones to the radio. Marco is experienced at handling crises, and he speaks calmly to the man at the other end. He tells the caller where he is supposed to be headed, and he tells him who he is and identifies his plane. But the caller keeps insisting that Marco needs to follow the plane flying on his right wing so as to land at a nearby airport. The caller keeps insisting that Marco must do as he is told, because if he does not, he will be shot down. He gives Marco and his crew 2 minutes to comply. Marco and his pilot exchange glances, and after a moment they agree to comply. Then the President's Super Christmas plane starts to follow the other plane flying off of their right wing. And soon Marco's plane starts to descend. The other passengers, including Nicolas, have no idea what is taking place in the cockpit, but they all seem relieved to be finally landing. The President's Super Christmas plane continues to descend, and through the windows the passengers can see houses and buildings, and lights are on everywhere. Then they see fields, and there are lots of sheep and other cattle. And then they see cars driving along. And then Marco looks out of the cockpit's window, and the plane on their right wing has disappeared. He calls to his pilot, and the two men stare in wonderment and bewilderment. The plane that was previously flying off of their right wing has disappeared. And at less than 300 feet, they see a large flock of white birds flying alongside them. Marco and his pilot stare in simple wonderment. And those passengers who can see it all also do the same. Then the radio crackles, and Marco and his pilot hear the distant words, "You are now approaching Tawny Town, and this is the airport." Marco's pilot instructs his passengers to fasten their seatbelts for landing. The sunset is a beautiful purple-pink as the President's Super Christmas plane comes in for landing, and the ocean below is as smooth as glass as the plane crosses it and heads for the runway. Marco takes one final glance out of the right-hand window of the cockpit, and there the huge flock of white birds seemed to be keeping pace with the plane, but keeping their distance far enough away from the plane. But at the same time, they are in plain view. Marco truly marvels at their beauty and their precision. And then his plane is on the ground. A special gift for a special someone. Marco and Nicolas are still not very sure who this special gift is really for. Of course, they know what the special gift is, because they have designed and developed it themselves. And of course, they are curious to know who the recipient will be. But no one has told them, and all that they know is that they need to be here in order to fulfill their mission. Their friend Josh knows, and so does the man in the jogging suit, who they have met some weeks ago. But Marco and Nicolas know only too well that when Josh is involved, anything is liable to take place, and everything is possible. And there always seems to be a surprise waiting around the corner. And they are not disappointed, for as they stop off the plane, a smiling Josh is there to meet them. He greets them both, and after the precious cargo is unloaded and safely stowed away, Josh takes his guests to a very posh hotel, and there they rest for the remainder of the day, along with their staff. And while they rest, things are taking place behind the scenes, and other guests are also arriving. Now it is time for Marco and Nicolas to present their gift to the one who needs it. And the two men are a tad nervous as they stand expectantly next to their special invention. It is the President's super Christmas car. This is not just any ordinary car, but one that they have especially designed for the one who will shortly receive it. Marco and Nicolas are standing in a huge hall, and there are hundreds of others there as well. The two magicians have been asked to stand on either side of their very sleek-looking invention. A red sports car that has everyone's attention. Everyone seems to be talking all at once, and cameras are flashing, and the bright bulbs are making Nicolas nervous. But Marco keeps smiling and nodding at him, seeking to reassure him. Then a sudden hush descends over the crowd, and Marco and Nicolas stare in total disbelief as an entourage walks towards them. They see Josh, and they see the man in the tall jogging suit, who they now recognize as Kris Kringle. And Kris Kringle is the chairman of the very high-profile foundation called the Kris Kringle Christmas Foundation. And Marco and Nicolas have previously carried out another mission involving Kris Kringle and his Christmas Foundation, where they had all met on board the President's super Christmas ship. But it is the other two men, that they can't seem to take their eyes off of. It is Santa Claus and his brother, Sandy Claus. And Santa Claus is expertly guiding Sandy Claus towards them. Wow! And now it all falls into place for Marco and Nicolas. The gift is for Sandy Claus, who is Santa Claus's younger brother. Marco and Nicolas learn that some time ago, Sandy Claus had lost his vision in an accident, and this has prevented him from performing his Christmas duties. He is unable to drive himself around, and he does not want anyone to do it for him. Sandy Claus had become very depressed after having lost his vision, and Santa Claus was determined to help him get over it. So this is why he had put out a call to his friends, and Kris Kringle had come true for him. Santa Claus has taken time out of his very busy schedule to be here in person, and he is the one who had helped Marco's pilot to help fly the President's super Christmas plane during the terrific storm. And he was also the stranger who had come aboard when Marco and Nicolas were boarding. Marco's pilot had thought that the stranger had looked vaguely familiar, but this is as far as he had gotten. Santa Claus is smiling broadly as the cameras click away, and surprise is written all over Sandy Claus's face. Then it is time for Marco and Nicolas to present Sandy Claus with his new toy, and Nicolas is practically beside himself. He is so excited. Sandy Claus and Nicolas sit in the brand new sports car, and pictures are taken of Nicolas showing Sandy Claus how to operate it. And here is where the two men stay for the rest of the day, as Nicolas the teacher shows Sandy Claus the student how to operate his new toy. And Marco and Santa Claus and Josh and Kris Kringle stand and watch throughout the day as the two men become completely engrossed in the President's super Christmas car. Hundreds of photos are snapped, and hundreds of spectators flock to see it all. And throughout the day, Santa Claus could be heard giving his famous ho, ho, ho. And Marco is as pleased as Punch, because he knows that both he and Nicolas have done something good for someone in need. And there is more to come. On the streets of Tawny Town. The streets of Tawny Town are practically ringing with the news of Sandy Claus and his new toy. The TV and radio stations continually broadcast news about all of this throughout the day. And with Christmas just 2 days away, everyone is now in the real festive mood. There are headlines that say, Sandy Claus gets a huge surprise for Christmas. World magicians save Sandy Claus and his Christmas. Sandy Claus is back in time for Christmas. And neon signs are flashing with the news. Newspaper boys are shouting out the news at street corners. and people are stopping each other to talk about the news. Above all, the children are all full of joy and glee. Strangers are greeting each other to tell each other, Santa Claus is back. World magicians have saved Santa Claus. World magicians have done something great for our Santa Claus. And on it goes. Everyone is barely able to contain their excitement. Friends and strangers alike are all caught up in everything. Santa Claus is a very quick study, and he can operate his new toy fully. And now he is in the Christmas spirit, and he and Nicholas prepare to start handing out presents to the townsfolks. But unfortunately, Santa Claus has to leave due to his own schedule. But everyone understands and are sad to see him leave. And soon Santa is on his way, not before he has left some specific instructions for Marco, Nicholas, Josh, and Chris. He has also called some of his elves to fly into Tawny Town to lend a helping hand. For after all, it's Christmas. The Tawny Town shops and stores, bakeries, malls, and everything else have all come alive. Santa Claus is back and everyone is rejoicing. Cakes and cookies are baking. Toys and games are selling like hot cakes. Shoppers are everywhere. Christmas lights are flashing. Horns are honking. Music is playing. Carolers are parading. Kids are laughing and adults are smiling as they greet each other. In short, Santa Claus is back with a big bang. He is no longer depressed and sad. He now has a new toy to help him get around. And Marco and Nicholas have also brought him some special gadgets to help him with other things. All kinds of talking devices, braille devices, and gadgets and devices that vibrate and speak. Several folks can be seen painting up their houses, while others could be seen cleaning their chimneys and repairing their broken doors and windows, and while others could be seen cleaning and scrubbing their driveways and backyards. And indoors, furniture is being polished. Appliances are being shined, and carpet cleaning is also taking place. Many are busy at home, cooking and baking, decorating and wrapping Christmas presents. All is well and right in Tawny Town. And now it is time to get ready for the big day. Gifts and presents have all been loaded onto every available vehicle. Santa's elves are prepped and ready. Kris Kringle and Josh Reisman are also ready. But above all, Santa Claus is ready. But Marco and Nicholas must tell the families their bad news. They won't be home in time for Christmas. Marco and Nicholas are very torn. Sad on the one hand that they won't be able to spend Christmas with their families, but looking forward to spending Christmas with Santa Claus and the folks of Tawny Town. And Josh and Kris Kringle offered to make the dreaded phone calls to Marco's and Nicholas's families. Christmas morning in Tawny Town. through the night, Santa Claus has been busy handing out gifts to the folks of Tawny Town, to adults, to children, and to everyone else, and to those from 2 to 92. Santa Claus's elves have been busy helping Santa Claus, and at midnight they get a special call from Santa Claus. Santa Claus first speaks to his younger brother, Sandy Claus. Then he speaks to his elves, and then he speaks to Kris Kringle and Josh Reisman. Finally, he speaks to Marco and Nicholas, and again he thanks them for what they have done. But there is more to come. Santa Claus tells the 2 magicians that their presents are waiting for them at the hotel where they're staying. And he instructs them to open the door to the dining room of the hotel, and there they would find them. Marco and Nicholas are dead tired by then, but their curiosity gets the better of them, and they drag themselves over to the hotel to see what Santa Claus has brought them. And lo and behold, they open the door to the dining room, and there they find their presents. Marco's and Nicholas's families waiting for them, surrounded by mounds of presents from Santa and Sandy Claus, and gifts from Josh Reisman and Kris Kringle, and many of the town's folks. Marco and Nicholas are practically speechless, but it is little Nick who breaks the spell by shouting as loudly as he could, "Ho, ho, ho!" And their families greet them, and all is well. Christmas morning in Tawny Town can only be described as one of pure joy, cheer, and craziness. Santa has left gifts for each inhabitant of Tawny Town, and Sandy Claus also has something for everyone. Kris Kringle and Josh Reisman have presents for those in seniors' homes, and Marco and Nicholas have brought gifts for those children with disabilities. Anything and everything from talking games and toys to electronic gadgets and devices with large screens and special touch screens. Everyone is now in full Christmas celebration mode. And as the celebrations continue throughout the day, Marco and Nicholas, along with their families, slip quietly away, and long after they have returned home on their President's Super Christmas plane, the celebrations continue in faraway Tawny Town. This is the end of episode 9, The President's Super Christmas Car, and I hope that you have enjoyed it as much as I have enjoyed putting it together for you. I want to wish each and every one of you a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, compliments of the season, Happy Hanukkah, Joyeux Noël, Feliz Navidad, Buen Natale, all good things for the coming year. I'll be back with episode 10, but in the meantime, you guys take care now, and don't forget to submit your lists to Santa Claus. Take care, and ho 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 for now. Ho ho for now.